Happy Monday, everyone. John Lorden here with another episode of Case Cracked. And I'm back in recorded form. I want to give a very big thank you to everyone that came out to the Lorden Arts Live we did last Friday. I really enjoyed it. I will certainly try to do more lives, but I'm going to keep them kind of limited. It kind of feels like a special occasion when I do them that way, and I like that feeling. So I think the next one we'll have is probably for hitting 100,000 subs, and I don't know how slow or quick that's going to be, so we'll get there when we get there. But please keep an eye on the channel for the next Lorden Arts Live, and a very big thank you. I also want to give a special thank you to the Super Chatters. Because of you, the Colin Madsen documentary is funded. It did reach its funding goal, and it didn't reach it by much. So our contribution was certainly a big deal in that, and I want to thank each and every one of you Super Chatters that helped us do that. And I look forward to seeing what's going to happen with the documentary. So thank you guys again. All right, today's case is one that's written by Christy Arnhart. I like to call this one the Crawlspace, and no, that doesn't have anything to do with the popular podcast and buddies of mine, Tim and Lance, who actually gave me this giant Crawlspace mug, probably the biggest mug that I own. No, this is just a story where a Crawlspace comes into play, so keep that in mind as we go into today's episode. Michael Chikevda joined the Illinois Army National Guard in West Frankfort, close to his hometown of Royalton, Illinois, way back in 1982. Years later, he was in a relationship with his girlfriend, Shannon Wilfong, but it wasn't what most people would call a very healthy relationship. It was an often troubled on and off affair. Even the birth of their son, Ricky, on September 14th, 2002, did little to stop their arguments. Michael was deployed to Iraq soon after Ricky was born. He appeared to maintain a close bond with his son, even have a portrait of the pair commissioned while he was overseas. Michael's relationship with Shannon would eventually come to an end, and despite their troubled past, both parents were initially able to work out an agreement to share custody of Ricky. In 2004, his deployment ended, and Michael returned to Illinois to spend time with his son. Unfortunately, problems with Shannon once again arose. Allegedly, she regularly refused to let Ricky spend time with his father, violating the terms of their joint custody agreement. But it would be 3 years later, in 2007, when things would take a drastic turn for the worse. That fall, a court date was set to discuss Michael's visitation rights with Ricky. Although Michael appeared on time, Shannon failed to show. This placed the court in a difficult situation that worked in Michael's favor, as he was granted temporary custody of his son. Unfortunately, before the ruling could take effect, Shannon and Ricky had disappeared. By November 2007, both were officially listed as missing people. In December, a warrant was issued for Shannon's arrest. Investigators needed to know where she and her son had gone and why. It soon became apparent, however, that things weren't quite as clear-cut as they may have seemed. Investigators would learn that Shannon and her mother, Diane Dobbs, had both accused Michael of abusing Ricky in the past. Did Shannon run away with her son to protect him from the alleged abuse? Diane certainly seemed to believe so, and while investigators searched for Ricky, Diane focused her attention on a smear campaign against her daughter's former boyfriend, Michael. She distributed flyers in the local community, even going so far as to hand them out at Michael's church. At her home, which was just 3 miles away from Michael's, Diane put up multiple posters with handwritten accusations claiming that Michael was a child abuser and molester, that they had begged police and child services to open an investigation, asking police to make Michael take a lie detector test, a test that Shannon had agreed to take, but Michael always refused. Both Michael and investigators suspected Diane knew something about Ricky's disappearance. Diane permitted them to search her property, but it turned up no signs of the missing boy or his mother. Over the next 2 years, Michael would become the focus of 3 separate investigations into Shannon and Ricky's disappearance. All of these investigations would turn up nothing, and for years, Ricky's location would remain a mystery. On September 4th, 2009, investigators and federal marshals received a tip that led them back to Diane Dobbs' 2-story property in rural Franklin County, Illinois. Upon entering, investigators found the windows of Diane's home were blocked off by drawn shades or other items. Some were even blacked out with dark paint. This was suspicious enough, but it was Diane herself that tipped investigators off to something much more important. As they entered a back bedroom, they found Diane hastily trying to push a dresser against the far wall. When officers moved the dresser aside, they discovered a hidden hole cut into the wall, and when they peered into the darkness within, they saw Ricky, clad in only a t-shirt and underwear, hiding with his mother in a chamber that was just 12 feet long, only 5 feet wide, and no taller than a washing machine. Had Ricky really been kept for 2 years in a space so small investigators couldn't even stand up inside it? As the boy was taken into custody, those present experienced a heartbreaking sight. Master Sergeant Stan Diggs from the Illinois State Police reported that when we let him out of the patrol car, he ran around like he'd never seen outdoors. It was actually very sad. He was very happy to be outside. He said he never goes outside. After hearing his son had been found just 3 miles away, Michael said, "You could have knocked me over with a feather." In light of the discovery, police arrested Shannon on charges of felony child abduction, while Diane faced charges of aiding and abetting. Mother and daughter insisted that their story had to be heard, even going so far as to invite the television show Good Morning America to Diane's house while she was out on bail. During the interview, Shannon and Diane insisted that they were protecting Ricky from his abusive father, who was an ex-police officer as well as an Illinois National Guard lieutenant colonel. The women only let Ricky out at night, and when visitors came, they forced him back into the crawlspace behind the dresser. According to Diane, the secret room had already been there when she originally purchased the house 14 years prior. She also claimed it was used for storage and that she had only thought to hide Ricky there once she saw police closing in. She claimed that her daughter had been forced into hiding to keep the child from his father, and that the custody dispute was a nightmare for all of us. When asked how much time Ricky had spent in the secret room, Diane replied, "In 2 years' time, maybe 5 minutes." In fact, she claimed that her grandson had enjoyed total freedom during the years that he had spent in her home. "My grandson had run of the house. When we were outside, we would go fishing. We would do weenie roasts. We've done fireworks on the 4th of July. He's helped me plant my flower garden in the back. He's got his own garden in the back," Diane said. She also insisted that her daughter had little choice but to flee with Ricky to protect him. "We were on our own and we had to do what we had to do, and that was to make sure my grandson was safe." When reporters spoke to Diane's neighbors, they discovered that Ricky had never been spotted outside the home. Investigators who rescued Ricky felt it was obvious to everyone that the boy had little contact with the outside world. Angela Anderson, an investigator for the State Child Welfare Agency, testified that a counselor who examined the boy briefly said he had a speech impediment, had limited reading skills, and was, quote, socially lacking, socially behind, reaffirming suspicions that Ricky had not left the house for 2 years, not for school, or even for a doctor's appointment. Ricky was placed with one of Michael's relatives while the case was investigated. Surprisingly, Ricky is in good spirits, reported Master Sergeant Diggs. For someone who's been isolated in that house with no other outside beings, he is a very social, very polite, very talkative little boy. In the months that followed, the court refused any access to Ricky by his mother, who often sobbed during her hearings. She also kept insisting that she had done nothing wrong. "You're making me sound bad. It was not like that at all," she interjected at one point. Michael Chekevda rejected all allegations of abuse, as did state child welfare official Jan McGraw, who stated she had absolutely no concerns about the father. September 19th, 2011, Shannon pled guilty to the charges against her and was fined only $1,500 and given 2 years probation for her role in Ricky's abduction. Her mother, Diane, also pleaded guilty to obstructing a peace officer and was fined just $1,000. She said her daughter came clean in order to end the trial and pursue visitation rights. "She wants to start getting a life with her son," said Diane. "We just want Shannon and Ricky reunited." Michael, meanwhile, was granted full custody of his son, and on Ricky's 10th birthday on September 14th, 2012, he also retired from the military to focus on being a single father to Ricky and hopefully finally find peace. 2 years. You have no idea. I've lost sleep, I've lost weight, I've gained weight. I wouldn't wish this on anybody, stated Michael. Case cracked. You know, these types of family situations are always tough. I think many of you out there have experienced something like this in your personal life. I know I have, actually on several occasions at this point in my life. I don't know that they're ever going to get easier, but trying to handle things in this way, I feel very strongly is just absolutely not right. And I wonder if people get so attached to their theories about, or their stories about there being some type of abuse because it gives them some type of backing for doing something like this. Well, I had to protect my son from his abusive father, so we had to go hide in this crawl space in my mother's home. I don't know, but it's pretty clear through the investigation that there was no abuse actually going on here. And some people might suggest that the living conditions this boy was living in could have been seen as a form of abuse as well, and keeping him away from all the things that a typical child should be doing, going to school, being out to play with other children and all that. So I'm really surprised that the charges were so light, but we do have the mother and her mother both admitting that they were guilty in this case. And another thing that kind of struck us when Christy and I were discussing this case is the fact that they stayed only 3 miles away from where Michael was. And isn't that really a statement in itself about the level of worry that they had? You know, if you thought that you had a child that was being physically abused by someone, would you stay so close in proximity to them, especially when you're essentially attacking them with all these posters that she was putting up and everyone that she was talking to about this case? Don't you think that that might entice the person to be kind of involved in your life more, and through that possibly discovering where Ricky is? So I think once again, it just speaks to the fact that I don't know if the original allegations were really true in this case, and it doesn't seem like it. You know, if I was doing something like this, if I was in the mother's shoes, I would never admit to being guilty. I mean, if I knew that I was trying to protect my child, I would go to all ends to do that. And we don't see that in this case. We see her kind of turn around and admittedly take a much lighter penalty, but I still wouldn't let the words come out of my mouth if I truly knew that there was something wrong going on in this case. And ultimately, that trial, I'm sure, helped the decision in terms of him getting full custody of Ricky as well. So we did look for further updates. We couldn't find out if Shannon has actually got any type of visitation arrangements worked out at this point. It would have been nice to know if there was some type of program that they could put her through where maybe get her some counseling and through that re-enable some visitation, because I don't think it's fair to Ricky either to not be able to spend time with his mother. Admittedly, it's a risky proposition when you're talking about the fact that she ran off with him once, but we're now talking years later, and I really hope that there has been some type of mending of that situation, because ultimately we need to focus on the children in these cases, and Ricky deserves to have both of his parents in his life and his grandmother. So I really hope that they've worked all that out. All right. Before we end today's episode, I have to thank more PayPal and patrons, more PayPal supporters and new patrons. And I just want to keep letting you guys know what the situation's like. YouTube is still demonetizing my videos, and they're going back through my old catalog and demonetizing a bunch of those videos as well. I don't know what's going on with it. I don't know how bad it's going to get, but I do know that being open and honest with you guys about it has been very helpful. So many of you are coming to support the channel. I truly appreciate it. So thank you to PayPal supporters, Gina Mori. Thank you so much, Gina. She's donated multiple times. Brandy Fry, who set up a recurring payment through PayPal. Thank you, Brandy. Victoria Simonson, who sent a large donation. Victoria, I truly, truly appreciate that. Laura Nori, Mino Peninato, it might be Mino or Minot. I know that there's a couple different ways I actually looked up trying to pronounce that right, and there's so many different pronunciations. I don't know which one's right, so I'm going to try them all. Kyle Rafferty, thank you. Justin Fitz, Santa Rain, or is it Rune, or is it Ren? Once again, I looked up pronunciations, and there's multiple, but Santa, thank you so much. And Santa's brother, Ansi, also wanted to donate. Thank you, Ansi. Really appreciate that. New patrons, Ariel Chubb. Thank you, Ariel. Heather Knifer, Brenda Rosales, Jamie McLaughlin Bearden, Rebecca Guilford. Thank you all for being new patrons and supporting the channel. And on top of that, we had Angela Lees, Cindy Villatoro and Ty Craven increase their pledges, which is just another way you can help. If you're already donating, feel free to bump another $1 or $2 on that payment, help out the channel a little more, and help ease this YouTube life. I'm telling you, it's been an interesting journey. I wish I could focus more on the cases, and ultimately that's what I'm trying to get to, and you guys are helping with that, so thank you so much. Take care, everyone. I'll see you back here on Wednesday, focused on a new case on Searchlight, right here on the Lord and Arts channel.